Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Rogue Wav Podcast, the frequency for all things pop culture and the disruptors behind it. We talk comics, movies, TV, and pop culture every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, right here on youtube.com/Rogue Matter and facebook.com/We Are Rogue Matter. You can download this podcast every week, basically right after the show is over on all major podcasting apps. Join the movement. Go Rogue, roguematter.com. Tonight, we are all about Peacemaker, the finale, the cameos, the reaction, the controversial ending, quote unquote, and the one scene that nearly ruined the whole show for me. We are also going to go in depth talking about Mascot on Mascot Showdown, which I can't wait for. Grogu versus
Stop
Eagly
using the word we.
versus.
This is your obsession. This is totally your obsession.
Oh man, it's amazing too because it just flows right into next month's March Movie Madness. All right, I am your host, Michael Dolce, as always, joined by my co-host extraordinaire, Hassan, Lord of the Radio, Godwin. How you doing, sir?
Yeah, it's Wednesday. It's good. It's
Hey,
a good
spring
day
is in
for
the
Wednesday.
air. Did you step out? Have you stepped outside at all today?
No, I have not. I've been busy, but yes, coming off of a 28-degree Sunday.
Yes.
Or whatever, and now we're at 60. So yeah, it's
Yes.
great. For people who suffer from barometric pressure, sensitivity. It's not that wonderful, but anyway, let's not ruin it. Let's pretend to be happy for the audience.
I loved it.
Yeah.
I went for a bike ride. It was fantastic. My kids are playing in the park today.
All right,
It worked out. That's on the East Coast. I think on the West Coast is very cold apparently right now.
Good for you guys. So how come you're happy? Like everybody else is supposed to be happy. Who said that? Where's that written?
It just is. Do you know what else makes me happy?
It is not actually. You are incorrect.
Do you know what else makes me happy?
What else makes you happy?
Peacemaker.
That's
what we start the show with.
It was a worthless segue.
I thought it was an easy segue.
No, it's
threw a softball
pretty bad.
up. You threw a softball up. It's okay.
You asked a question. I responded to the question. I played straight man, but it was still, in spite of setting that up perfectly, it's still a terrible segue. But anyway, go ahead.
All right.
I'm listening.
One day our March Movie Madness will be on our segues at some point. We will we will collect
what makes
them all
a good segue
and run them down. It'll be segue madness. It'll be very, very, very good.
Wow, man. These ideas.
Peacemaker finale. It is a critically acclaimed show. The critic scores, the Rotten Tomato scores, everything is. I mean, the ratings for it. Also, the last few. It is. I think I just read somewhere that is the most watched HBO Max original series, which then it got greenlit last week. In fact, into season 2, which really wasn't much of a surprise, right? I mean, I think we all kind of
for a company starved for hits, it's not a surprise that they're gonna try to capitalize on whatever hits they do have. So
right.
Gotcha.
But overall, I mean, I got to tell you, what an enjoyable ride. I thought there's something to be said about having low expectations for something, right? There is
starting off well. That starts off well. It does,
and this is what I'm talking about, right?
Okay.
Coming into Peacemaker, first of all, let's go even further back, right, to The Suicide Squad. Again, a movie. When we sit there and say a movie nobody asked for, I mean, legitimately in that case, this is a movie. It was a reboot / redo of a so-so movie of a title that is not. I mean, it's not like you're doing Batman. It's not like you're doing, Superman, to where it's like, man, I really hope they do a better version of it next time. It's like, oh, okay.
Although you could argue that they're trying to catch up with Batman and Superman by doing as many Suicide Squads as possible, because there's been several iterations of Batman and Superman. So,
I guess so, right?
As pertains to Warner Brothers, they're pretty much in line with making ridiculously many versions of the same franchise while neglecting several hundred others.
Yes.
But anyway, please continue. I'm listening.
No, I think it's a great point though. Again, I think it enhances my point where you're like, wow, okay, sure. Not only do we want a reboot of this, we want, we definitely want something. And again, I'm being sarcastic. A spin-off of something that he was probably. I think he was a great character. I think John Cena pulled it off in the movie, but in terms of his likability in the movie, he was a foil. I mean, he was a heel. There's no question about it. I mean, in the Suicide Squad, I'm not going to say he was the villain necessarily, but he definitely had. He was the shoe dropping of, oh crap, he's been working for the government this entire time, and so
yeah, he was a Shyamalanian twist to the movie. Yeah,
absolutely. So again, it's one of those things where you're like, okay, and they're gonna make a Peacemaker movie. Like, what could they possibly do here that's gonna be good? And so it's not something that
conventional wisdom was that it was going to be terrible. It's a terrible idea. Nobody knows why they're doing it because it's technically a spin-off of a quote unquote failed movie from a failed movie franchise. So yeah,
right.
I get you. I
know
where you're coming from.
It did do well, theoretically speaking, on HBO Max, but from the box office, it did not do well. Even in pandemic times, especially after,
even given the unique times that we're in, they're basically saying it wasn't a great film, right? Okay. So wasn't a great offering or whatever euphemism they like to use for it. Right?
So like I said, there is definitely something to be said for low expectations, right? That being said, I don't actually, at some point, you have to tell a good story. You have to tell something, you have to pace it well. There has to be likable characters. There has to be reasons for me to want to continue to watch week in and week out, and not just watch, but look forward to it week in and week out. And I thought it did that and then some. I thought it was so unique in that sense where I was like, man, out of everything I've watched on streaming, this is I just enjoy it. I enjoy the heck out of it. And that's something that to me, I'm telling you, I was shocked. I was absolutely shocked that it was able to pull this off. And right all the way through. I don't think there was a real let up. I thought the introduction of Vigilante midway through was hilarious. I thought Robert Patrick's character was just a true villain. It's good to root for an actual villain. Like, just, this guy is not nice. This guy's a bad guy. And, things like that where, I don't know. Again, it superseded the low expectations for me by the end into, nah, man, this is just quality. This is just totally quality. And it followed through. And in the finale, for spoilers, anybody out there, the final episode was as enjoyable all the way through as the rest of the series. A lot of times you could get to a series finale and there could be a huge letdown. And in fact, thanks to the surprising cameos, and we'll give the spoiler warning one last time before we dive into the cameos part of it, it actually threw it up a notch for me. The cameos worked so well to raise my level of enjoyment of the series as a whole. Doing something I didn't think it needed to do. It didn't need to tie into the rest of the DC universe. I know they kind of made like off the cuff comments about the rest of the DC universe, but it was just a winner. And I got to tell you, I loved Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one. I thought the second one was okay. But I would not bow at the James Gunn altar. This one's got me thinking now. Maybe now it becomes one of those things where it's like, okay, I want to know what James Gunn's going to do next, which we know it's going to be season 2 of Peacemaker, but that's the level of enjoyment to where I'm like, okay, I can get behind James Gunn.
It's probably going to do Guardians 3 before he does season, because it's supposed to come out next year. So
yeah,
I would imagine the potential $1 billion, in third installment of a multi-billion-dollar franchise would take priority over, a TV show. It's probably
Well, I mean,
and
theoretically,
also like Peacemaker just ended.
yeah,
So the way things work out, man, it might be 2 years before that comes back anyway. So
sure.
I would imagine Guardians of the Galaxy would be the next thing he's going to work on.
Probably right. What was your reaction to Peacemaker as a whole?
As a whole, I enjoyed it. I thought it was I thought it was pretty solid all the way through. I think John Cena is as much as everybody likes him, I still think he's underrated. Because he manages to pull off a lot of stuff that's very difficult to pull off. Like he can do comedy, he could do intimidation, he could do, he could do seriousness and, that kind of stuff. So, and he's one of these people who I'm sure this is not true, but he seems to not have an ego, about his self-image. So, that, you could work wonders with that. You could, you could stretch that for miles. So I think that's fantastic. I think the show was really solid. I think it managed to very well capture the spirit of the previous, the latest iteration of Suicide Squad, the Suicide Squad. So I thought that was a good follow up to it. So if you were a fan of the Suicide Squad, that show was going to be right up your alley. It wasn't going to diminish your experience by any stretch of the imagination.
Yep.
It is there's a lot of toilet humor and a lot of some of the stuff that I don't particularly love, so it's full of that, but like I said, the cast and especially John Cena are charming enough where it doesn't become grating, so I enjoyed it. I will watch the season 2 of it. I'm happy for them. I think as always, my focus is always on the punditry, who swore that this was the stupidest idea anybody had ever had, was to make a spinoff of a movie that was a reboot of a movie that didn't do well or wasn't well received. And the reboot wasn't all that well received. And now they're going to do a TV show spinoff of it. How good can that be? And then, there's the typical, the cast of usual suspects are condemning it, a couple of days before it comes out. And then, of course, boom, it becomes the biggest thing. And now everyone's like, oh, Peacemaker stuck the landing and it did this. And what's next for so-and-so? And it's like, oh, man, you guys are so full of crap.
But that's the thing. I know you might be critical of the punditry, but they weren't wrong. I mean, who would have thought? Right? That's half the fun. That's half the fun.
No, in the sense of speculating, like, is this a good idea? Is it not a good idea? That's not a problem. Saying this is a bad idea and it's going to be terrible and no one's going to care, or it's a show that nobody asked for, which is everyone's favorite. It's a show that no one asked for. It's like no one asked for any show. Any brand new show that came out of nowhere that everyone loves, no one asked for Ozark before season 1 of Ozark.
Sure.
So to BS, it's a statement for the sake of a statement. It's a nothing burger statement.
No, but I disagree too. I disagree also, and I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why why there is.
I mean, I was like in the middle of explaining when I was.
Okay, go ahead.
No.
Well, I was going to say the reason I find that it can be a valid statement is in Ozark is a different thing, right? Because Ozark is not tied to a franchise. It's not tied to a superhero universe. So when shows get greenlit within a superhero universe that fans are not just aware of, but excited about, fanatical, if you will, about, to not get, let's say, a Snyderverse Superman show. I'm just making stuff up, right? Or you're not getting a Green Lantern show, or you're not getting characters that you might want to see. Instead, you're getting a Peacemaker show. It's almost one of those things like, what's the point? Why would you give us this in the DC universe when there are characters that we actually know and love and want to see more of? So I think that...
Yeah, but the question answers itself, right? Because here you are talking about something that's great, that you had no expectation of, that you wouldn't have ordered, that you wouldn't have thought that you wanted to see,
right?
And it's still it still comes out and it still sticks the landing, and it's still now it has become something that you want to see.
Right.
So it's like
no, it does now, but I'm saying beforehand the question's a valid question at that point. Like
it's not. I just don't think it's a valid question because it's like nobody knows what's going to be in the zeitgeist, you know. And by the time you know what the zeitgeist is, it's already over, you know. By the time you realize what a trend is, and then try to set something to market a trend, you're already passé. You're already behind the times.
Yeah.
So to serve the clamor of what people will want versus, you know, doing something that may be inspired, you know, you take that, and everybody's always saying, like, the Lord of the Rings controversy right now is about, like, wow, why are they revisiting the Lord of the Rings? Why are they doing this and that, right? So obviously, it's something that nobody asked for.
Yeah.
Right? And they're upset about the fact, well, nobody asked for this, so therefore
that's also a testament, though. But again, that's a testament for how well the original Lord of the Rings trilogy was pulled off, and the Hobbit movies. I mean, that there is.
But I mean, look,
there is fear and trepidation that by coming out with something new, you're going to end up tarnishing what has come before in terms of an overall experience. And I think Star Wars is a good example of that, right? I think
but those are the things that are pre-established that people may ask for. Whereas something that comes completely out of the blue, like a Peacemaker spin-off of a lackluster movie, is something that no one asked for. Yet it now owns the internet. Right. So obviously the question is in search of a controversy. It's trying to set up an expectation of a controversy before there's even controversy. Nobody asked for anything, you know? Nobody knows. I mean, like, with the exception of your son asking for a bike in Christmas, right? Any present that anybody gets wasn't previously requested. And part of the joy of getting it was that you didn't request it. You don't know, you know, it's completely unexpected. So I just don't understand, like, where there's a fervor for, like, do something new, do something unexpected, give us something that's unique and interesting and that's a good story. Yet the minute they try to do that, you're like, well, no one asked for this.
DC also, though, again, I think this is all coming back from expectations. And next week we're going to do a whole state of DC on screen. Where we kind of dissect with the Batman coming out and coming off of Peacemaker, you know, where DC is now as compared to where they were maybe a few years ago. But I think there's also a track record of DC not being successful in anything they do. There's a history
except for
there.
Where they are, except for Wonder Woman and Aquaman.
But again, are they exceptions? Are they exceptions to it versus, you know, and look, it's almost like kindergarten, right? Like, you pick your nose in kindergarten, you're the nose picker. And it's going to take a long time to get that stink off you. Wow. as you get older and things like that. I think there is legitimacy to people questioning, you know, what DC is doing, especially because on the other side of the fence you have Marvel, who, you know, seems to have this streaming thing down, has already released many more shows than they have streaming wise in terms of within the confines of the movie universe. Peacemaker's the first show to exist within the DC movie universe that was established with Man of Steel and Ben Affleck's Batman vs Superman, and Justice League. You know, again, I think it's warranted. I don't think it's a question.
I know you do, but I don't. Okay. I understand that you do. I understand how you feel about it. I'm explaining to you how I feel about it. I just think it's useless. I think it's mindless. I think it's a goalpost move. Like, no matter what, I'm gonna have something. Like, if I didn't ask for it, I'm gonna complain I didn't ask for it. If it's something that I could see coming, I'm gonna complain that it's too obvious. You know, it doesn't matter. It really just doesn't matter. People are just gonna complain no matter what.
I feel the same way. What I would tell you also, or what I would say, just a good segue going back before talking about DC as a whole. Obviously, the cameos at the end, Jason Momoa and Ezra Miller reprising their role as Flash and Aquaman, but in a very Peacemaker sort of way. They show up, again, this is spoilers if you haven't seen it, but they show up after the battle's already won. They have a stunt double for Wonder Woman, silhouette version of Wonder Woman, a silhouette version of Superman kind of hovering there. And what it did was two things. One, throughout the show, they made reference to the rest of the DC universe, but this was the first time where you actually are connected to the DC universe. In a true, I want to say Marvel sense of the word, like an MCU sense of the word, where you actually have other heroes appearing. So it was a pleasant surprise. It was unexpected. Considering even just a few, what was it, 30 minutes earlier, he's talking about, Green Arrow dressing up for brony conventions. And, it seemed to be a very, the whole show seemed to be very satirical in terms of the rest of the DC universe, but to have the heroes actually show up, I thought it was a brilliant move. I thought it was great also because it doesn't take away from what Peacemaker and his team were able to accomplish in terms of thwarting an alien invasion. And so I give a big thumbs up. I think everyone kind of gives a big thumbs up to the cameo, at least, how it was received. I think it definitely blew Twitter away. It blew, people's minds away to see it. And it also just shows what a good sport, actors like Jason Momoa are to kind of show up and kind of pull the Robert Downey Jr. in a way, right? Like, be the face of the DC universe, which again, we'll go through this next week. It's amazing how Aquaman is more of a face of the DC universe than, say, Batman. So very, very, just overall, James Gunn to me did everything right with timing for these things, with placement. There were definitely shocking moments, but it didn't feel like it relied on shocking moments to get me through to the next piece. And at the heart, the main character, Peacemaker, especially the story with Robert Patrick with his dad, I thought was, just was the centerpiece of everything. And I thought it whereas other shows we've seen on streaming seems to either be about setting up the next thing that's happening, or the storylines involving the main characters are not as interesting as the side characters. I thought this one, I thought his relationship with Adebayo was riveting. I thought, his relationship with his father was riveting. And I loved, Vigilante as the comic relief in there as well too. So, overall, I don't know. I can't really find too many flaws with Peacemaker in terms of how it was executed.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I necessarily feel I that they did Vigilante justice, because I used to read Vigilante when I was younger.
Did you see? I have no reference for him. I have no reference for him. Yeah.
Vigilante is basically DC's Punisher.
Okay.
And he predates the Punisher.
Ooh.
Vigilante was earlier. So, and it was a very serious comic book. It was a mature comic. It was a rated R comic book.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of stuff in it. So, when I was in junior high or whatever, we would read that and we thought we were getting away with something, because of it was an adult comic.
Those are the good old days, man. I got to tell you, those are the good old days where comics to me were just like you said, like you're getting away with something, as if you're watching like an R-rated movie. Like, I feel you on that. I feel you completely.
Yeah. So I don't know about, I just had a personal, have personal possession issues over Vigilante, but
Okay.
Yeah, I think they did a good job. I enjoyed it. I think it was really solid. I don't necessarily feel like I was waiting week after week for it, but I was happy every week. Like, okay, I got another episode of this to watch. I got, so, as content goes, coming out of 2 years of really,
barren
really
wasteland,
scant content. That was, having something almost every night of the week to watch. That one being one of them was an absolute joy. So yeah, it's really good. And like I said, I see. I don't think I would have liked it at all if John Cena wasn't the main character.
I agree with you,
because I could think maybe one other person who could have done that. Maybe The Rock might have been able to do it,
right.
But everything else was just kind of be like, man, this is just overdoing all the stuff that I'm not a huge fan of. So right. I mean, it's big ups to John Cena, who I've always liked, but I mean, he's just nonstop with that stuff now,
who didn't like John Cena, or at least did not seem to, was Stephen Amell, who played the played Green Arrow in CW's Arrow, responded to the first how do you spell it? Canonical?
Mm-hmm.
Did I get that right?
Canonical, yes.
Look at me go. Name drop of Green Arrow in the DCEU. As you can see, he had quite the direct response to John Cena. I have no idea. So someone tweeted at him, if Stephen Amell watches Peacemaker, but would genuinely love to hear what he thinks of the DCEU's first name drop of Green Arrow. Stephen Amell said, haven't seen it. Too busy showing Cena what professional wrestling should actually look like on TV.
Wow. All right. I don't think
I feel like he did not poke fun. Like the title of this article is Stephen Amell pokes fun at John Cena. And I got to tell you, I don't think
that does not sound serious to me at all. But
I don't think so.
No, not at all. Come on. That's a joke because he knows he's not a wrestler. He knows he's out of his weight, class with John Cena. So it sounds like a joke to me, but
sounds like a burn. I don't know. It sounded like
it's an attempted burn, but I mean, it's a humorous burn, probably. All right.
That's the problem with social media, right? The nuance factor, right?
That's why you should stay off it.
Well, I can't because I'm reading articles.
You could read it, just don't use it.
No, I had to. It's
Hey,
you have to. I mean, how could you not? It gives us such great fodder for this.
Well, that's true.
The dude goes.
But they say you're in for a penny, in for a pound when you do that.
To brony conventions, dressed as the back half of Twilight Sparkle with a 4-inch wide butthole drilled into his costume. Stephen Amell took umbrage. There is no question. See, I think it's one of those backhanded compliments.
Okay,
I do.
Fair enough.
I really do. I think it's kind of interesting. The funny part about it, though, too, is Stephen Amell's Arrow is not the Green Arrow in this universe because we know the CW exists.
No, that's why, like I said, it's the manufactured thing because someone asked him, someone made it his purview by bending the question to ask him, what do you think of the first canonical mention of Green Arrow? But, that's got nothing. If I were him, I'd be like, got nothing to do with me. That's right. I'm not part of the TV. I'm not part of the movie franchise.
Right.
But, it was bent so that he could respond so that there would be controversy.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree. All right. We talked about all the raves about it. And before we go to break, there were things about it, though. There was two things that I can't say was near perfect. And one scene in particular kind of really took me so far out of the experience. The only scene in the entire show that took me out of the experience to where I was questioning whether it stuck the landing or not. And that was the scene where John Cena has this decision. Sophie Song is the character. She was obviously taken over by the butterfly, and they were trying to save their food source. So they're trying to teleport it away. And instead of battling Peacemaker at the end, which I thought was kind of a cool twist, the butterfly character had developed a relationship of some kind with Peacemaker to the point where they were trying to communicate to each other throughout the throughout the series. And so instead of battling Peacemaker, this butterfly decided that he's going to try to reason. He or she is going to try to reason with John Cena's character and say, look, you've got us all wrong. It was hinted at when Judo Master kind of said, hey, you got it all wrong. The butterflies, they're not what you think. And their plea was a very specific laundry list of reasons why they're trying to actually save humanity. And the reason I don't care about the laundry lists, I'm not commenting on the laundry list of reasons they gave, only to comment that it felt very political in a show that up until this point to me was not political. It was satirical. It was fun. The bad guys were very black and white in terms of morality. To go into specific detail that it's we were, and she says something like, we were part of this movement. We've seen it on our planet before, this populist movement that comes in and people, making direct reference to COVID in the DC universe, which is interesting in terms of mandates and things like that. And I thought to myself, it's one thing if she comes in and says, we've seen this happen before. Humanity's going to destroy their planet. They're going to destroy each other. very general statements that you could literally apply to any point in human history, to be very specific to this point in history where there is no reference to this outside of, anything. There's no reference to COVID in the DC universe period. There's no reference to mandates. There's no reference to, populist, people running for office and things like that. For a split second, it felt not like a character was telling me things, but that the writer was telling me things. It reminded me of the Avengers Endgame scene where all the women come together, where it was a splash page of, Marvel responding to its critics in the form of a scene like, hey, we do have strong female characters, don't tell us we don't, as opposed to like an organic scene that comes together. So in that regard, I was a little disturbed by it. Only, maybe if it the next day I had to think about it in the sense that John Cena's decision was to counterbalance that by saying, humanity needs to make their own decisions. So I feel like at least there was a counter opinion to what was expressed. But at the same time, that particular scene, honestly at the time made me roll my eyes in the same way that Avengers Endgame did. And I wasn't a fan of that. The second thing that kind of was a little head scratcher for me was the very, very end. And this is what I would call the controversial ending to me. The butterfly is freely roaming around and he's feeding it. And I'm thinking to myself, why would he trust that the butterfly is not going to just take his body over? I know they kind of had a rapport at this point. They've developed a relationship, but it's one of those horror movie type feelings. Like, why would you be in a dark, scary woods, when you know that there was like rumors of an axe murderer there, 20 years ago, it was one of those, like, it just felt like, man, I know he's not necessarily the brightest character that we have, but wouldn't he kind of, like, what makes him trust the butterfly at the end to not take him over? Did that bother you at all?
No. Once you have an eagle that kind of obeys commands, you've entered into a level of absurdity where some of these these intricate plot points don't seem to really make much of a difference or matter too much. So yeah, that didn't really bother me. It was right. It was pretty par for the course absurd. I would call the entire series absurd. Mm-hmm. But in a creative way. It's creatively absurd. It's fine. Absurdity is actually sometimes more difficult than straight drama. Yeah. But
I feel like in the world they built of absurdity, and I agree with you, it's an absurd world. That part didn't fit to me. To where I feel like he would just absolutely trust him. I guess you could argue that with their food source destroyed, I don't know. He needs John Cena to feed him, but he could literally just take over another human host. I don't think there's anything stopping him from doing that. So to just be a butterfly at the end,
isn't that the joke? Isn't that the humor?
I don't know. That was the one. That was my one. Like, okay, this is not 100%. This is not an A+. It's an A show. I give it a grade of an A. Those two scenes to me, though, in terms of the end, big enough to where I'm sitting there going, not sure. Why wouldn't what? So, what do you guys think? Let us know in your comments. What did you think about Peacemaker as a whole? What did you think of the final episode, the cameos, the ending? We want to know. We will respond to you in the YouTube and Facebook comments. When we come back, though, it is Mascot on Mascot, Showdown, or Sidekick on Sidekick. You can even go Sidekick on Sidekick. We've got it all. We've got Grogu versus Eagly. We'll throw in a baby Groot just for fun when we come back. Welcome back to the Rogue Wav Podcast. We're going to remind folks to go to check out roguematter.com. We've got nothing but free ebook and comic book content with podcast content like our wonderful show as well. Everything is free to read. You can go on to roguematter.com. You can read Time Trader #1, story about Dylan Sharp, who can rewind time at will, tries to take his new powers to the stock market to cash in, discovers it's run by an Illuminati of folks just like him. Or check out Key to the City. It's Quantum Leap set in New York City only, and there is a powerful force within the city that is trying to allow Andy to right wrongs or to fix predicaments that are going on. And it's all part of a really cool ebook series. It's a love letter to New York City. Check it out right now. All right. So I wanted to do this. I've been wanting to do this for a while now. I think Eagly is the best animal mascot we have seen in all these superhero shows. And I said animal at first, but then I would say maybe just overall, right? I mean, it's in a way, Eagly is a sidekick. There's a great article on slashfilm.com, an ode to recent superhero pet sidekicks. But overall, what Eagly is what Grogu is to Mandalorian, and is what Baby Groot is to Guardians of the Galaxy. So I think it extends past being a pet or an animal. I like the mascot idea as kind of I don't know, a blanket term for it. It is the super cute, non-human, I think, portion of these shows that now every show, it's now a staple. In order to have a successful show, you need one of these. Agree or disagree? In order to
what do you think? What do you honestly think? Do you think I agree with that, or do you think I disagree with that?
I think you disagree with it, but the more you think about it, you're going to be like, damn it, he's right.
Name 5.
Okay. Are you ready? I've got him. So we've got Eagly, we've got Baby Groot, and we've also got
Baby
Grogu.
Groot's not on a TV show.
Okay, wait. We'll take Baby Groot out. You also have Goose the Cat, which is in, that's a movie too, Captain Marvel. Okay. Lucky the Pizza Dog. What?
From
right?
what?
They've got that. Crypto the Super Dog.
Lucky the Pizza Dog is from what?
Hawkeye.
Okay.
Pet superhero sidekick. Alligator Loki. I forgot all about Alligator Loki.
First of all, Grogu's not a pet. Neither is Groot. If you wanted to add him into that.
No, I know. I'm saying it's a blanket now. It's the cute sidekick or the mascot or something to that extent.
Just now you said pet. So
I know. Again, it was a pet, and then I extended it. I just literally, you don't listen to what I say. I extended it past. It's not just a pet. It's all encompassing. It's cute.
You just now, and you'll hear it on the playback. You just now said pet superhero sidekick as, huh? Come on, what do you think for a pet superhero sidekick? I'm saying that's where I heard it.
I will listen back as I do to every show. And I will acknowledge on next week's show if that's the case.
I got that. Yeah, no, you won't. Anyway,
it's very possible.
Anyway, most likely you won't. But
I just named a whole bunch of superhero sidekick mascots.
I mean, yeah, but like to the gravity of Grogu, you know, no. Arguably, the entirety of television Star Wars is hinged on Grogu. Arguably, true.
So
you can't put Crypto and Pizza the dog in that same category. That does not work.
Yes, I won't disagree. The Pizza the dog is a stretch, but Alligator Loki was all the rage when first appearing, and it bit off the guy's arm. I mean, you know, he has a central role in that show.
I'm trying to be there with you on this, but no. First of all, baby, you had when you mentioned that in the production meeting, I said who twice because I totally forgot about him. So I would never forget about Baby Yoda Grogu. I've never forgotten about Baby Groot. So I'm not feeling what you're saying about every show needs.
I would say every show and movie. We're gonna include the movie too. I feel
right.
like there's a formula here
that
has been employed now. That basically, if you want to have a successful movie or TV show, you need an animal / mascot / non-human cute sidekick of some kind in order to be successful.
And the two, when I asked you to name 5,
yes,
the 2 you mentioned were Crypto and Pizza the Dog. What are the other 3?
Well, Pizza the Dog had an integral role in and it's not Pizza the Dog, it's Lucky the Pizza Dog. I mean, without the dog, Kate Bishop doesn't get kind of entwined in everything.
2 of them are dogs, so like that's not a come on, man.
The cat in Captain Marvel.
Make this work. What?
Goose is a cat in Captain Marvel.
First of all, that's a movie. Secondly, you expanded it. But do you really think that Captain Marvel made $1 billion because there was a cat named Goose that was an alien?
I don't think it hurt.
That was not the gambit that you set forth, though.
It's part of the formula. Yes, it's every cog is in the wheel.
God. All right. Okay. I don't know why I'm arguing with it. All right. Fine. Yes, Michael. Absolutely.
Men in Black had the pug. The pug was just as popular as the agents because he ended up coming back. So it's got me thinking now. We've got March Movie Madness coming up next week.
Yes. Okay.
We are going to square off the best non-human sidekicks / mascots, and we're going to pit them against each other in our March Screen Madness. We're going to expand it TV and movie. March Movie and TV Madness. TV and movie? Movie and TV? I don't know. We're going to put them all, and we're going to debate who is the best of the best. Will it be Grogu? I don't know. I don't think it will.
Yes, it will be Grogu. It will either be Grogu or Baby Groot.
When Eagly hugs Peacemaker,
yeah,
I mean, it's just, Eagly. I don't know. How do you not melt? How do you not melt?
Eagly doesn't know how to do anything.
That was pretty. I was disappointed in Eagly, but laughed hysterically at the end when he failed to drop the helmet off where they wanted it.
Eagly is strictly comic relief.
He's a will they won't they.
Without any strategic significance to the plight of the main characters. Unlike Groot, who helped Yondu take over the Ravisher ship, and Grogu, who puts Rancors to sleep and saves Mando from Mudhorns and this and that. I don't know.
We're gonna welcome back our previous guests, and I'm gonna figure out some rules for this. We're gonna make this very exciting. Maybe we'll do a mascot draft somehow, and we'll draft a team of mascots. I don't know. We'll figure it out, but it'll be our movie madness for this year.
All right.
Unless I change my mind between now and 2
weeks. Which you probably will. But okay.
What do you think? Who takes the crown? Grogu, Baby Groot, or Eagly, which is clearly the winner.
Who do you think it is, and why is it Eagly? That's your gambit right there. Who is the best, and why is it Eagly? And why is everybody who doesn't think it's Eagly wrong? Right? That's your right. Yeah. Okay.
That's the proper framing. That's proper. All right. Put your answers in the comments. When we come back, what's the deal with Jim Lee's pants? We go spinning the racks when we return. Welcome back to the Rogue Wav Podcast. We like to do this segment diving into the stories, news, or books that we think you should be reading when we talk about the comic book industry. We call this segment Spinning the Racks.
Spin the rack, spin that rack.
Now, lately with Spinning the Racks, we've been doing books that we think you should be reading, right? And we like that. I think that's a really cool thing. So when we're reading something cool, we want to share it with the world, right? We want to help you guys with your reading lists, your pull lists. If it's something from more recent times, or if it's something back in the day that we think you guys should be consuming, we want to be there and be a voice and just kind of help promote the stuff that we love, which is comics. That being said, this Spin the Racks is a little different. It comes from the Beat website, comicsbeat.com, and it came out. The internet is asking, what happened to Jim Lee's pants? On this auspicious day, no need to waste time with art. We have a genuine comics history mystery on our hands, one involving one of the medium's most heralded artists. The mystery started with a tweet by the Worlds of Wildstorm account, harkening back to a 1999 Wildstorm special published by Wizard Magazine with a contest, and not just any contest. The Win Jim Lee's Pants contest. Such a stunning prize must have led to piles and piles of entries, but who won the pants and what did they do with them? From there, the mystery of these celebrity slacks doesn't really go anywhere, although Jimmy Palmiotti had an idea. He tweeted back, we passed them around, each of us taking a turn. What we do know is that the youthful Lee is holding up what looks like a typical pair of turn-of-the-century pleat front khakis. If you're watching us on YouTube and Facebook, you can see it. These dad pants are indeed a prophecy, as Lee is now a father of 9. My God. Sadly, we cannot see the facing page, but we can see that the runner-up would get at least some Wildcat trades. This was the Travis Charest era, so some nice art. And in 1999, Wildstorm was already owned by DC, and this promotion is definitely a little out there for DC, but Wildstorm still played by its own rules. And while Wizard Magazine had many detrimental effects in the comic book industry during its run, you can't say the staff wasn't clever and didn't put out some entertaining ideas. And all these years later, the idea of a staff of dozens of human people working on an actual paper magazine that was all about comics is bizarre enough on its own. The contest rules from a subsequent tweet supply a little more information and a reminder that once upon a time, you had to cut things out of a magazine and mail it in to enter a contest. The process so exhausting, it's a wonder our ancestors have ever had time to raise children. There's a little note that says, trouser law, no purchase necessary. Contest is open to anyone except Wizard employees, Wildstorm DC employees. All entries must be received at contest headquarters. So I guess basically they just entered it in and somebody won those. Somebody wore those pair of pants. Now, a couple things that the reason I thought this was interesting is that both of you and I both worked at Wizard Magazine. We cross-pollinated at the same time in the 2000s when I joined up in 2002 up until 2006. However, were you there in 99? I don't think you were, right?
Yes, I was there in 1999.
Well, you were there. Did you come up with the Jim Lee Pants idea?
Yes, I came up with the Jim Lee Pants idea.
I know that's not true, but I just wanted to.
That was totally mine. Yes.
I thought it was pretty funny.
I came up with wild ideas like that all the time. Like, I wanted I wanted other very controversial things.
Yeah.
Like I wanted Brian Michael Bendis's girdle, like that kind of thing. So, I mean, a lot of those ideas just didn't get out of the design stage, unfortunately. Yeah. But, yes, that was me. That was all me. It was all my idea.
Hey, you got to be in it to win it. You can't, if you want one of your
ideas.
That's
what I always said, but I kept getting hammered down, like the
nail.
The nail that sticks out. It kept getting hammered down. So I stopped making suggestions after a while. I just couldn't deal with it anymore. So
two things about this article stuck out to me. One, I feel like there's a nostalgia like Zoom now. No, Zoom's right. It's like a surge of nostalgia for Wizard Magazine. I know Wizard tried to relaunch recently with friend of the show Victor Dandridge, and ultimately now Wizard is gone. I mean, there is literally no semblance of Wizard. The convention company sold to Fan Expo, effectively ending an era. I mean, you could argue the era ended when they stopped publishing the magazine, which I think was 2010. But there's a So Wizards podcast. There's a lot of internet fodder about, showing stuff from the magazine. Some of it is kind of like, I can't believe they did this kind of stuff back then. Again, comparing the industry back then to what the industry is now. But a lot of it is also just a joyful look back at, like they said, a magazine that was published exclusively about comics.
Yeah.
And successful at it too. And I don't know what to attest this nostalgic, like, is
Yeah,
it just people?
People miss old stuff.
I guess so, right?
That's 90% of it. Just people miss old stuff. Things were simpler then, man.
Yes.
The other day, I was working on some stuff, and I put on Netflix, and I watched like 4 or 5 episodes of Knight Rider.
Ooh.
You want to talk about how innocent 1983 was in comparison to now, and slow. Everything was slow.
Yes.
There's like 80 shots of a stunt driver driving Kit back and forth, and usually always in the desert for some reason, even though they were in Los Angeles. So, but that was entertainment back then. That was primetime entertainment.
Yeah.
That was the premiere. That was on the level of Peacemaker, right. Back in its day.
Right.
So and then what, if you think about that, and you think about the music, and you think about the times, and you think about the show in and of itself, it usually brings back good memories of simpler times that you were sitting on your living room floor watching that at 8:00 at night, and you only had another half hour before you had to go to bed or something, really simpler times without having to pay taxes or like negotiate trade deals or any kind of weird stuff like that, or play the stock market. So thinking about Wizard magazine and why and thinking about Wizard being the villain of the comic book industry back then, think about how many villains the comic book industry has now. All the things that people think are wrong with the comic book industry, that they may be right, they may be wrong about that. But back in the day, we only had one villain, and that was Wizard.
And that's the thing that was always bizarre to me. As a kid who grew up reading Wizard and loving Wizard, I didn't have issues.
Well, people buck trends, though, that everybody decides that Wizard is the authority, right? Which is unfounded, which is absurd. But everybody decides that. So it's a decision that everybody makes together, which suddenly makes it true. And so now everybody hates the one authority of comic books, and that's kind of usually how that works.
Yeah,
Michael Jordan
that
comes out of
it,
nowhere and becomes the number one Laker, and then everybody wants to topple him. Nobody cared about him 5 years earlier when he was just a starting line guy. So it is what it is.
Yeah, I never found it detrimental. I know a lot of people like to place the morals of today back then, and I know that people like to kind of interpret the past through a present lens, to where they were misogynistic and they were this and that, and look, I mean, if you do run it through that lens, there's definitely a lot of stuff which focused a lot on women, but not necessarily the most flattering way by today's standards.
I don't know.
But being a comic book fan for 30 years and being in the comic book store, comic books were not mainstream.
You're using your knowledge of your unique knowledge of that time,
right?
Because you're from that time,
right?
To guide you through that time. In it not being as nefarious as people say it is, and not being as terrible, one-sided and polarized as people think it is, because you're from that time.
Yeah,
a lot of people who are judging that time weren't there. They don't have the frame of
reference.
No,
I know that's my point. They're judging it through their own lenses today, and being.
But how else could they? How else could you do it? Like, if you weren't there, how else could you do it? Like, if you read a history lesson, you would still be like, well, that wouldn't work. We wouldn't do that today. But thank God that's over.
I think you could have a benefit of the doubt for it, where you're not pinning it to this wall and saying, oh, it was so terrible and things like that. Like, I get it, but there wasn't a lot of women back then that are into comics. Like, they're just percentage wise, there just wasn't. Trust me, I was at those conventions. You were at those conventions. If you found a woman who was into this stuff, that was like finding the leprechaun, or the unicorn. You're like, what?
Yeah, I'm not going to ask the next question. So just, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm not saying. Now, is it possible that Wizard contributed to there being less women interested? Very possible. I'm not going to rule that out either. But I do know the facts. The facts
I mean,
were
when you bring that up, are you saying that well, it was justified because there weren't a lot of women there? I mean, I don't
I
understand.
think what you're looking at again. What was Wizard targeting? Wizard was targeting what the demographic that was consuming comics were.
I get you. I understand what you're saying. I mean, look. It is what it is. It was
14-year-old boys. They were like targeting 14-year-old boys.
Yeah,
like,
but
that was their.
You could still instill 14-year-old boys with like respect and reverence for people who aren't 14-year-old boys. I don't know. I mean, either way, the argument could be made either way, right?
Yeah.
So it's better. I get what you're saying. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, like if you've got a room full or a house full of 14-year-old people, like they still have to clean the house, right? They still have to make it presentable. You still have to teach them, certain level of morality in order for them to survive in the world that they're coming up in. So I mean, like either way, like the argument could be goes both ways. So I get what you mean. You get what I mean. That's the extent of it right there.
What about you guys? What is your theory on Jim Lee's pants? Is it out there somewhere? Did he ever?
And why didn't I get credit? And where's my royalties for that idea? That's what I want to know.
You'll never see that. You'll never. See that.
I obviously not. And that's thank you for doing this segment because that makes me realize that there's remuneration out there that I need to go seek out for myself. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yep, I love it. That was our show for tonight. Next week, The Batman is coming out, and it's got huge box office expectations. We look at The Batman as a whole as part of the state of DCEU on screen, TV, and movies. Peacemaker, very successful. Aquaman, very successful. DC seems to be stringing together some successes. Has the overall opinion of the DCEU changed? And if it hasn't, does it deserve to? We will debate all of these questions next week as I do my box office predictions, sure to go wrong. Plus, American Horror Story actress Naomi Grossman will join us. She has a new movie out as well too. You should come by. You should be watching us all the time anyway. But next week will be an awesome episode. We will see you guys next week. Rogue Wave.